My name is Elara Quinn, 29 years old. The terminal was nearly empty when I wheeled my suitcase along the polished floor, the speakers whispering last calls to flights I wasn't on. Success for me has always sounded like ventilation hum and rolling luggage, constant movement landing, just long enough to leave again. Consulting pays well, they say. It also means you live in hotel rooms and carry your life in a carry-on. Maybe that's why I held on to my grandmother's house the way some people clutch old photographs. It made a noise in my chest that said, stay. 7 years ago, when I was 22 and just learning to fake confidence in glass conference rooms, my dad's mother died. At the reading of the will, I could feel Mom counting hypothetical dollars in her head. Paloma, my younger sister by 4 years, kept her sunglasses on indoors because she cries pretty and knows it. The frames were an easy prop for sympathy. Then the attorney read the line that stopped everyone's breath. The house would go to Dad and me in equal shares. Not to Mom, not to Paloma, just 50-50, him and me. It wasn't a mansion. A modest 2-story an hour outside the city, white trim, a maple out front that would bruise the driveway with leaves every fall. It had been appraised around $600,000 at the time, but to me it was an address you could say without wincing. I remember tracing the deed with my finger and thinking, here is something that doesn't move when I do. Nobody knew what to do with it at first. It sat empty through a winter where the pipes threatened to sulk and burst, and we spent a few Sunday dinners pretending to make family decisions. Mom would bring out a yellow legal pad and treat the meal like a board meeting. We should sell, she'd say, briskly, tapping the pen against a column labeled pros. Dad would purse his lips, peacemaking as always, or rent for a while, see the market. Don't rush. Paloma didn't have a column. She had commentary. It's such a sweet house, she'd say lightly, as if sweet were a unit of currency. I had a different idea. Even as a junior consultant, my bonuses were decent, the trajectory good. The town around Grandma's Street was sprouting coffee shops and a new light rail stop. Property values were inching up like ivy. I told Dad one evening, let me buy you out. Not now, I need time, but at fair market value for your half. He watched my face the way he used to when I was little and swore I'd brushed my teeth. He nodded. Okay, if we do it properly. Mom's smile didn't reach her eyes. It's complicated to hold property like that indefinitely, she said, which sounded like concern but tasted like control. There was a mortgage Dad had taken years back to help with some repairs. He was still paying it down. I offered to absorb the day-to-day costs in the meantime. Utilities averaged around $500 a month. Property taxes were $7,000 a year. I could cover those, I said, as I saved to buy his share. It made math and emotional sense. I'd earned the right to keep a place that felt like a promise, and he'd get his equity at a price neither of us would resent. But life has a way of filling any available space. Paloma had just finished college with a resume full of arty internships and a job that mostly paid in drink tickets. Living with our parents was an arrangement combustible for everyone. One night after dinner, Mom drew a rectangle on her legal pad and shaded it in. Why don't we let Paloma stay at Grandma's place? She suggested temporarily until Elara saves up. It's empty anyway. She said temporarily, the way landlords say, cozy. It sounded reasonable. Someone needed to keep an eye on the house, to flush the toilets, to make sure winter didn't settle inside the walls. I'd be traveling most weeks, and the idea of a warm lamp glowing in a window I owned half of, well, it calmed me. Just until I'm ready, I said. Paloma flung her arms around me, smelling like citrus shampoo and approval. I'll keep an eye on the pipes. She grinned, as if she were doing me a favor, rather than inheriting a life. That first month, I stopped by on a Sunday between flights. Paloma had draped a soft throw over Grandma's old couch, something cream that looked allergic to tomato sauce. A mug with a lipstick half-moon rested on a coaster from a vacation I never went on. Marcus was there too, a boyfriend then, not yet fiancé, legs splayed, talking about an app idea like he was pitching the moon. We just need a little angel investor to get to MVP, he joked, nudging Paloma. She laughed, eyes sliding to me. It didn't land as a joke. In the hallway, the linen closet still smelled faintly of my grandmother's lavender sachets. I noticed a thin ripple in a file box where her paperwork lived, a missing manila envelope. Nothing I could name precisely. Did someone reorganize? I asked casual. Mom was tidying, Paloma said. You know how she gets. I did. I also noticed later that week a text from Mom. Can you send me a good scan of your passport for our records, just in case of emergencies? She'd asked for that before sometimes when we traveled together to book things quickly. I hesitated, then forgot to reply. Work got loud again, and the airport announced me by name. As months turned into a year, and then another, the temporary congealed. Paloma made the house a set for her 20s string lights in the backyard, a borrowed projector for outdoor movie nights laughter that lifted and floated. I transferred utilities on autopilot, paid the taxes, from a budgeting app folder literally called House, because I am the kind of person who labels everything and assumes labels make it safe. I also moved money each month into a separate account, the one meant to buy out Dad's half. My spreadsheet told me I was on track to hit the number around $350,000 for his share at current value in about 2 years. I checked in monthly or tried to. Some visits I found the place gleaming. Others I'd run a finger along the banister and pick up dust like evidence. I'll get to it, Paloma would say, earnest and airy. She worked hard at being effortlessly adored. Chores rarely fit her brand. Marcus, meanwhile, became a regular, his toothbrush sprouting in the upstairs bathroom like he'd planted it. "We're engaged," she told me over takeout one night, flashing a ring that caught the kitchen light and threw it at my eyes. "Congratulations," I said, and meant it with a complicated heart. At a family dinner, soon after Mom's legal pad returned, the wedding conversation came dressed as logistics, like we were project managing a festival. Budget, venues, head counts. She wrote numbers in neat columns, as if neatness made them reasonable. "It will be beautiful," she said, and the word beautiful had a price tag hanging off it. Dad poured more water instead of wine. Paloma squeezed Marcus's hand under the table and watched me from the corner of her eye, like I was a judge at a competition she needed to win. I kept thinking of Grandma at that table, how she used to insist we pass dishes clockwise, so no one stabbed an elbow into anyone else's ribs. She would have told us to talk slower, to mean it, to be kind in the ways that leave proof. Late that night, after dishes and the ritual wiping of crumbs into a tea towel, I opened my laptop and pulled up my savings tracker. Green bars marched forward. The plan was working. The future had a shape. I drafted an email to Dad. "I'm getting close. I'll be ready to buy your half sooner than we thought. We can get valuations, do it by the book." I didn't send it something about not wanting to drop it into the churn of wedding talk like a stone into a crowded pond. I told myself I'd wait a week. 2. After the Germany trip, after this next client signed. I wheeled my suitcase to the door the next morning and paused. The house key, the old brass one, lay warm in my palm. I knew exactly which boards creaked in that hallway, which cabinet stuck in the kitchen if you didn't lift as you pulled. But a different kind of map was forming small absences, shifts in tone the way Mom's requests for documents threaded through casual conversation. It didn't look like a plan yet. It looked like static. At the airport, the flight board flipped, and I watched my surname appear on the standby list, even though I had a seat. My phone buzzed. A message from Mom. "Don't forget the passport scan. Let's keep everything organized. Love you." I typed, "Sure," then stared at the cursor and erased it. I turned the phone face down on the table and listened to the rolling thunder of other people's departures. Some families say all the right things, and still, somehow a wrong thing stands up and stretches in the corner. You tell yourself it's nothing. You feed it silence. You go to work. You fly away. You tell yourself a house is just wood and wiring a thing that can be managed by math and patience. You don't notice how quickly a temporary arrangement can put down roots, how when you come back, it looks at you like you're the guest now. I boarded when they called my group. It was a red eye, the kind that hands you your own reflection in a window and asks you to make sense of it. Somewhere below, a 2-story house was sleeping with a light on in the living room and a mug on a coaster. Somewhere an envelope was missing. Somewhere a legal pad lay open with a column of numbers waiting to be justified. I fastened my seatbelt and told myself that when I returned, I'd send that email to Dad, make it official. No more drift, no more temporaries. I closed my eyes against the cabin lights and pictured the maple tree out front as shedding leaves like little warnings you don't read until you're slipping. The plane lifted. The city unstitched itself into a river of lights, and I, confident, organized, older sister, consultant saver of receipts, didn't know yet that the people I loved were learning how to make my handwriting move without me. When I came back from my trip to Frankfurt 3 months later, the jet lag still buzzing in my bones, my parents invited me over for dinner. I almost didn't go. Deadlines waited, and my apartment fridge contained nothing but mustard and expired yogurt. But guilt works faster than sleep, so I drove out to their place. The smell of roasted chicken greeted me familiar and heavy. Mom had set the table with her good dishes, the ones with thin gold rims. Dad's tie was loosened, but still on, which meant he was in negotiation mode. Paloma and Marcus sat side by side, their shoulders almost touching the new engagement ring, catching light with every gesture. My chair was waiting at the end of the table, deliberately placed. I should have known. Halfway through the meal, Dad cleared his throat. We wanted to talk about the house. He said it softly, but his words folded the room into silence. I put my fork down. Perfect timing. I've been meaning to tell you I'm close to ready. Within 6 months, I'll have enough to buy your half at market value. We should start lining up an appraiser. For a second, relief flickered in Dad's face. Then Mom spoke, and it was gone. That's actually what we wanted to discuss, she said, smoothing her napkin. Paloma's wedding is coming. We'd like you to help. $120,000 should cover it. The number dropped like a brick on china. I blinked. You're asking me to just pay for her wedding? Mom's eyes didn't flinch. You've been saving. The money's sitting there. It's not as if you'll miss it. I inhaled slowly. Why don't we do this instead? I'll buy out Dad's share now. You'll get far more than you're asking for. $350,000, maybe more. Use what you want for the wedding. It was rational, clean, but Mom shook her head immediately, lips pressed thin. That won't work for us, she said. Dad leaned forward, voice rougher now. Half the value won't be enough for what we have planned. My stomach tightened. You're asking for 120. I'm offering 3 times that. How isn't that enough? Mom's tone sharpened. Because the money isn't for you to dictate. We need it directly. I laughed, disbelief cutting through my exhaustion. So let me get this straight. I pay every bill on that house while Paloma lives there rent-free. I save diligently to buy out Dad's half. And now you want me to just hand over the money. For a wedding I'm not even sure I'll be invited to. Paloma's face flushed, but she stayed silent. Marcus's hand slid over hers under the table. I noticed. Dad's voice dropped into the one he used when he thought authority was the same as love. Elara, you make good money. You've got stability. Paloma is just starting. She needs us. I snapped. Then help her with your money. The silence that followed was brittle. Mom's eyes flashed. Don't you dare talk to us like that. We raised you. We sacrificed. Now we're asking for one favor. One favor, I said. You're asking me to throw away years of saving to delay my future to fund a spectacle. That isn't a favor. That's theft dressed in sentiment. The fight stretched on an hour of circling the same battlefield. They insisted. I refused. Finally, I stood the chair legs scraping the floor like a warning. I'll think about it, I said, though. My voice made clear I wouldn't. I left their house with the taste of ashes in my mouth. In the car, I stared at my hands on the steering wheel. They were steady, but inside something had shifted, like discovering the ground beneath you had been hollow all along. Back at my apartment, I opened my laptop to distract myself with work. Among my unread messages was one from Mom sent while I'd been flying home. If we handle paperwork while you're away, will that be easier? I hadn't noticed it before. Now it glowed at me from the inbox, like a trap I hadn't seen in time. The thought drifted across my mind, ridiculous paranoid, that she meant more than wedding paperwork. I shook it off, closed the laptop, and poured myself a glass of water I didn't drink. Still, when I tried to sleep, I kept hearing her voice at the table. That won't work for us. The wedding wasn't the only thing being planned. Germany in the spring smells like rain on cobblestone. I'd been there for 3 weeks juggling client dinners and presentations when it happened. The night was quiet. My hotel room hummed with the minibar fridge and the soft buzz of neon from the street below. I'd just kicked off my heels, opened my laptop to skim tomorrow's slides when my phone pinged. Subject line confirmation of the sale of your property. At first, I thought it was spam. Then I saw the sender Hartwell and Associates Real Estate. My chest went cold. The email was polite transactional. Based on submitted documents, we've begun the final stage of transferring ownership of the property at 1847 Maple Grove Road. Please provide additional confirmation to close. Maple Grove Road, Grandma's house. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I dialed the number listed, barely hearing the ringtone over the rush in my ears. Hartwell and Associates, Jennifer speaking. This is Elara Quinn, I snapped. I just got an email about selling my property. Stop everything. I never agreed to sell. She hesitated. Let me pull up your file. Yes, I see here. Your father, Robert Quinn, initiated the sale as co-owner. We also have a signed purchase agreement from you, along with identification. No, you don't. My voice was ice. I'm in Germany. I never signed anything. Silence then. Ma'am, I'm looking at the documents now. Your signature is here. Then someone forged it. That's fraud. Stop this immediately, or I call the police. Jennifer's voice dropped professional but uneasy. I need to escalate this to my supervisor. Please don't worry. We'll pause the process. Don't worry. As if those words could stop the shaking in my legs. I hung up and called my parents, straight to voicemail. Again. Again. Then Paloma. Nothing. The silence was an answer. By dawn, I was on the phone with my company's emergency line requesting immediate leave. The 12-hour flight back was the longest of my life. I tried to sleep, but kept seeing my own name in strange handwriting curved wrong at the edges. When the plane touched down, I skipped my apartment entirely and drove straight to my parents' house. Mom opened the door, eyes wide. Elara, you're supposed to be in Germany. I know what you did. My voice was steel. I pushed past her into the living room. Dad was there, pale, his hands twisting together. You tried to sell the house. My words cut the air. You forged my signature, my ID, while I was gone. They said nothing. Finally, Dad tried Elara. Listen. We thought, no, I said sharply. You didn't think. You schemed. Mom's chin lifted brittle. Our plan wouldn't have suited you anyway. We need more money than half the sale. This is for Paloma's wedding and for Marcus's business. My laugh was bitter. So you gamble my inheritance, my security, because you want a party and a pitch deck. You already rent a good apartment, Mom shot back. You have your career. You'll be fine. I won't allow it, I said. My voice was flat, final. Dad's jaw tightened. Then we'll take you to court. The judge will force a sale. I stepped toward the door, fury burning hot enough to steady me. Good luck with that. I left, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled. Driving away, I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. I could still see Dad's fidgeting hands, Mom's sharp eyes. In the back of my mind, something darker flickered: the missing envelope from Grandma's files, the text about paperwork while I was abroad, the request for my passport scan. They hadn't just stumbled into desperation. They'd been preparing. The letter arrived a week later, delivered in a stiff white envelope with Henderson, Walsh and Associates, embossed in sharp black. Dear Ms. Quinn, we represent Robert and Maria Quinn in the matter of the jointly owned property at 1847 Maple Grove Road. Our clients intend to file for partition by sale unless an agreement can be reached. I read it 3 times, the legal jargon sinking like lead. Partition sale. Court forcing me to give up what I'd been building toward for 7 years. I called Sarah Chen that night, an attorney I'd used for contract reviews. Calm, meticulous, with a voice that cut through panic. After listening, she said, Elara, this isn't just a property dispute. This is forgery and fraud. Do you have proof of your whereabouts when you supposedly signed? Yes. Passport stamps, hotel receipts, work logs. I was in Germany the whole time. Good, she said. That's airtight. Let's build a counterclaim. The next few days blurred into paper trails. I sent Sarah everything: boarding passes, time-stamped emails, security badge swipes at the client's office. She requested the documents from Hartwell and Associates. When the forged purchase agreement arrived, she laid it beside one of my real contracts. Look, she pointed, the loops in your cues smooth here, jagged there. Someone traced your hand. It's clumsy. Seeing my name distorted like that felt like being imitated by a stranger wearing my face. Sarah didn't waste time. We filed a counterclaim: fraud, forgery, attempted theft. Maximum penalties included prison time. 2 days later, their lawyer called Sarah. They wanted mediation. I didn't want to sit across from them, but Sarah insisted it's strategic. Let them see the weight of what they've done. The mediation room smelled of stale coffee and paper. My parents entered, looking smaller, thinner. Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. Dad kept rubbing the bridge of his nose. Their attorney, Jim Walsh, spoke first. My clients are willing to drop the partition lawsuit. That's not enough, Sarah said coolly. Your clients tried to steal a $700,000 asset. Dropping a frivolous lawsuit doesn't undo fraud. What do you want? Walsh asked. Sarah ticked points off like a metronome. 1, we sell the property together, split 50-50. 2, your clients reimburse my client half of all expenses she's carried alone, utilities, taxes, maintenance. That totals $45,000. 3, both sides drop pending claims, and this ends here. Dad shifted, whispering urgently to Mom. She hissed something back, her hands trembling. Walsh excused them for a caucus. When they returned, Dad's voice cracked. 45 is impossible. Sarah slid a folder across the table, 7 years of receipts. It's generous. In court, you'd be liable for more. The silence stretched. Finally, Mom exhaled. Fine. I watched them sign. This time, I leaned forward, staring at every pen stroke. No chance for imitation now. The house sold within 3 months. The market was hot. We got $700,000 more than I'd expected. After fees, I walked away with $325,000 and the $45,000 reimbursement. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like bargaining with thieves and calling it family. On the drive back to my apartment, the check sat in my purse like a weight. I thought about pressing charges anyway, about making them answer for the forged signature. But the memory of Dad's hunched shoulders and Mom's trembling hands lingered. Letting them go felt like choosing peace, or maybe it was cowardice. Either way, the cost was mine to carry. The closing check cleared, and for the first time in years, I could breathe without calculating property taxes in the back of my head. With my savings and the house proceeds, I bought a 2-bedroom apartment in the city, paid in full, no mortgage. I painted the walls a quiet gray, bought a couch that didn't wobble, and set my grandmother's old lamp in the corner. For once, everything I owned was mine, untouched by anyone else's signature. Meanwhile, Paloma had her fairy tale. A sprawling wedding with 300 guests, the kind of event you see in glossy magazines. A live band, flowers draped like a royal garden champagne that flowed like water. I wasn't invited. I learned the details through Lisa, my cousin, who texted me photos from her seat. "It's beautiful," she wrote. I stared at the image of Paloma in lace, Marcus beaming at her side, and felt something twist. Not envy exactly, but a reminder of the gap carved between us. Then came the investment. My parents poured their share of the house money into Marcus's startup, some delivery app he swore was the next revolution. They bragged about becoming partners, about how soon they'd be wealthy enough to retire early. "Marcus is brilliant," Mom told relatives. "This is our future." I stayed quiet, let them gamble. I had my apartment, my career, my boundaries. A year passed. Promotions came. I started seeing David, a colleague, with a laugh that cracked open my days. Life smoothed out, until the phone rang. It was Aunt Patricia. "Elara, honey," she said, voice low. "You should know Marcus's business collapsed." My stomach sank. Collapsed. Gone. Completely. Investors pulled out. Your parents lost everything they put in and more. They borrowed money from relatives, too. The debt's over $400,000 now. I pressed a hand to my forehead. What about Paloma? Patricia sighed. She divorced Marcus, moved back home. She's not well. Won't eat. Barely leaves her room. Guilt flickered through me. Then anger smothered it. I remembered the forged documents, the courtroom air, my parents' faces when cornered. Actions had consequences. 2 nights later, Mom called me herself. Her voice was shredded from crying. "Elara, please, we need your help. The relatives want their money back. They're threatening to sue." I kept my tone even. "I'm not giving you money." Her breath hitched. "You don't understand. Paloma is sick. She needs therapy medication. We can't afford it with this debt. She's your sister." Something in me cracked, but I held the line. "You should have thought of that before you tried to sell my house behind my back." Mom sobbed harder. "How can you be so cruel?" "I'm not cruel," I said quietly. "I'm practical. You made choices. You gambled. You excluded me when it suited you, and now you come begging when the cards fell wrong. That isn't family, that's convenience." She whispered one last plea. "She's your sister." "And I'm your daughter," I answered. "But that never stopped you from betraying me." I ended the call. For a long time, I sat in the dark of my living room, staring at the glow of the city. Part of me wanted to cave to rescue them. But deeper down, another part, the part forged from betrayal, told me I'd finally learned to stand still in my own life. The phone stayed silent after that. The weeks that followed were eerily quiet. No more pleading calls, no late-night messages. Only Patricia kept me updated in careful doses. "They're selling the house," she said one evening, "the one they live in now. They'll use the money to pay off most of the debts." I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. "That's what anyone else would do," I said. "And Paloma? She's in therapy. It's helping." Slowly. Patricia hesitated. "Elara, she asks about you." I didn't answer right away. In my own apartment, life pressed forward. I threw myself into work, into dinners with David, into mornings where sunlight spilled over my kitchen counter and reminded me of the life I'd built alone. For the first time in years, stability wasn't a fragile thing I had to defend, it was simply mine. And yet some nights the silence hummed too loud. One Tuesday, a thick envelope arrived from the probate attorney who had handled Grandma's will. Inside was a letter handwritten in her looping script. I left the house to you and your father equally because I wanted you to learn how to decide together. Family is work. Remember, money is only walls. Love is the roof. I pressed the paper to my face and cried, not the hot rage cry of betrayal, but something gentler. Grief for what could have been, for the version of us Grandma must have imagined. A week later, my phone buzzed at midnight. A text from an unknown number. It's me. I'm sorry. Paloma. I stared at the words, thumb hovering. I typed, get well first, then deleted it. Typed again. Finally, I pressed send. Get well first. No more, no less. That night, as I locked my apartment door, I left the chain unlatched. Not open, not closed, just possible. Because here's what I've learned. Family isn't the people who share your blood. It's the people who don't make you bleed for their comfort. Maybe one day Paloma will earn her way back through honesty, through work, through real change. Maybe not. But for the first time, I know I don't need to guess. My boundaries stand even if the door stays unlocked. And in that quiet space between anger and forgiveness, I finally felt like I could breathe.